Welcome to the Bookworm Duo, where we explore a variety of books. Let's get started. So what if I told you that applying killer whale training tactics to your most annoying coworker or, just picking up discarded candy wrappers on your morning walk could actually be the exact cognitive mechanism you need to process like 30 years of profound emotional trauma?
I mean, it sounds completely absurd on its face, totally ridiculous.
Right.
But that is the precise architectural magic we are digging into today. We're looking at this brilliant compilation called Chicken Soup for the Soul. Change your habits, change your life.
Yeah, and before you roll your eyes at the phrase chicken soup for the soul, assuming this is just a collection of Hallmark card platitudes,
Yeah.
you really need to understand who put this together.
Oh, absolutely. Amy Newmark.
Exactly. She is a woman who possesses one of the most, ruthless analytical minds in publishing today. I mean, she spent 3 decades as a Wall Street analyst and a hedge fund manager.
Which is wild. She was trained to spot patterns in massive sets of financial and tech data.
Yes. And now she uses that exact same analytical machinery to track down transformative human stories. She isn't just collecting nice tales.
No, she filters these deeply personal anecdotes through this really data-driven lens. She's looking for the underlying mechanics of change.
Right.
Like, she isn't interested in vague inspiration. She's looking for the how. How do actual messy human beings rewire their realities?
Okay, so let's unpack this. Because if you are listening right now and feeling completely exhausted by the self-help
I
industry,
don't know, the fatigue is real.
it is. If the idea of waking up at 4 in the morning to take an ice bath and radically overhaul your entire personality just makes you want to crawl back into bed,
Yeah.
this deep dive is going to be a massive relief for you.
A breath of fresh air, honestly.
Totally. We are going to track the chronological flow of Newmark's book to prove that changing your life is not about leaping over a mountain. It's about laying one tiny, laughably simple brick every single day. You don't focus on the wall. You just place the brick.
And that foundational concept of the brick is exactly where the book begins. And Amy Newmark actually uses her own life as the case study here, which is great.
I love that she puts herself in the hot seat first.
Yeah. So picture this. It's January 1st. She and her husband are at a wellness resort in rural Pennsylvania.
Sounds nice, but wait.
Well, it is freezing. It's snowing with high winds. It's the exact environmental trigger that usually makes people, abandon their New Year's resolutions on day one.
Oh, 100%. That's stay in bed weather.
Right. But instead of hiding indoors, they push through the wind, they attend a medicinal tea class, and they realize they actually have all the thermal gear they need to survive the cold.
Okay, so they conquered the weather.
Exactly. And that night, riding the high of that small victory, and maybe bolstered by a glass of sparkling wine,
Naturally.
Amy realizes that if she wants any habit to stick, she needs an external structure. She needs an accountability partner. So she drafts her husband.
But the resolutions they actually negotiate are so funny to me. Because they don't swear off carbohydrates forever or vow to run a marathon.
No, not at all.
They agree to stop picking their cuticles, to stretch 4 times a week, and to take a 30-minute winter walk outside every week, regardless of the weather.
It almost sounds too minor to matter.
Yeah, how is that going to change your life?
Well, that ties directly into Heather Webb's story later in the same section. So Heather writes about struggling with deep depression and that crushing inertia where, honestly, even brushing your teeth feels like a Herculean task.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's heavy.
To pull herself out of the doom loop of failed goals, she utilizes a framework from Jeffrey and Jamie Downs called streaking.
Streaking.
Yes, and to clarify, she does point out that doing this naked is entirely optional.
Okay, good to know.
She is talking about consecutive days of action. The streaking framework relies on a be statement rather than a do statement.
Well, that's an important distinction.
Huge. It's the difference between saying, I want to read more, versus saying, I am a reader. Once you establish who you want to be, you follow 3 non-negotiable laws. Make the streak laughably simple, keep a meticulous record, and find a community.
Okay, I get the record keeping and the community aspect, but why laughably simple? If the goal is to beat depression, doesn't laying one tiny brick feel like you're just standing still?
It totally feels that way to our ego, but neurologically, it is a masterstroke.
How so?
Well, when we set massive life-altering goals, our brain's amygdala, the fear center, it registers that massive change as a threat to our homeostasis.
Oh, so your brain fights you.
Exactly. It actively triggers resistance, procrastination, and anxiety just to keep us safe in our current comfortable misery.
Wow, comfortable misery is such a good way to put it.
But when you make a goal laughably simple, like I will do one single push-up today, it completely bypasses that alarm system. You literally sneak past your brain's security guards.
Because it's too small to be a threat.
Yes. And once you do the one push-up, the dopamine hit of ticking the box often propels you to do 5 more. As Heather quotes from the Book of Mormon in her story, by small and simple things are great things brought to pass.
It's basically the compounding interest of human behavior.
That's a perfect way to look at it.
So once we have that personal foundation built,
Yeah.
we don't just exist in a vacuum. Our new habits immediately start colliding with the deeply ingrained habits of the people around us.
Which is where the book makes a really fascinating pivot. It moves from internal accountability into how we systematically project these small shifts onto our relationships.
And sometimes those collisions are incredibly frustrating. Like, let's talk about Christine Overall's story, because this is where the killer whales come in.
Oh, I love this one.
It's so good. Christine adopts a rescue kitten named Michelangelo. And to deal with this cat, she starts reading up on animal behavior modification. Specifically, she reads an article turned a book called What Shamu Taught Me About Life, Love, and Marriage.
Right. And the premise of that book is that the author successfully used exotic animal training techniques, specifically ignoring bad behavior and heavily rewarding positive micro-movements on her husband.
Which is wild enough on its own. But Christine decides to take this framework into the office.
Oh, yeah, she goes there.
She has this incredibly difficult, prickly, defensive coworker named Frank. And instead of locking horns with him, she consciously changes her own reaction habits. She stops getting nervous around him. She metaphorically sits in his chair to observe his environment.
Right, getting a feel for his territory.
Exactly. And she completely alters her responses to mimic an animal trainer rewarding a subject. And Frank softens. He drops his defensive posture and eventually even invites her to be a speaker at an ethics conference.
What's fascinating here is the underlying mechanism of that dynamic.
Wait, I have to stop you there and push back a little.
Oh, go for it.
Because reading this, I found it hilarious, but also vaguely sociopathic. Like, is treating a human being, a professional colleague, like a 6,000-pound captive orca, actually a healthy interpersonal dynamic? Or is it just a really funny coping mechanism to survive toxic office politics?
It sounds manipulative, absolutely. I totally get that reaction. But if you look closely at the psychology, the Shamu trick isn't actually about mind-controlling Frank.
Okay, then what is it?
It's a mechanism for Christine to break her own default cognitive loops. Think about it. Before this, she was walking into interactions with Frank already anticipating a fight. Her heart rate was up, her tone was sharp, she was defensive, which triggered his defensiveness.
Right. It takes two to tango.
Exactly. By adopting the persona of an animal trainer, she forced herself into emotional detachment. She became an observer rather than a combatant.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
That slight shift in her own habit broke the cycle. She stopped doing her half of their toxic dance, which basically forced Frank to learn new steps.
That reframes it entirely. She wasn't really training him. She was short-circuiting her own trigger response.
Precisely.
But sometimes passive observation isn't enough. Sometimes changing the dance requires throwing the record player out the window entirely. Which brings us to Lois Tuffin's story, Gossip Girls.
Yes, a brilliant example of a blunt force pattern interrupt.
Seriously. So Lois develops this terrible habit of complaining. She is endlessly ranting to anyone who will listen about her awful new boss. She's trauma dumping on her friends, watching their eyes glaze over, but she literally cannot stop herself.
The habit has fully hijacked her mouth.
Until she has dinner with her friend Michelle, who is known for being ruthlessly direct. Lois is mid-rant, and Michelle just looks at her across the table and says, "We both know you're going to quit this job, so why don't you just shut up about it?"
Boom. It's the verbal equivalent of a bucket of ice water.
Exactly. It completely stuns Lois into total silence. But then she just bursts out laughing because Michelle was entirely right.
Yeah, that blunt intervention shattered the cognitive loop Lois was trapped in. It forced her to look at her own toxic habit from the outside and instantly break it.
Now, what Lois experienced was a spontaneous intervention.
Huh.
Right. But we can also engineer our environments to force these better relational habits on purpose, like Dr. Will Nunn's story.
Oh, the family dinner game.
Yeah, he creates a game called Good, Bad, Great, God, which is so elegantly simple. He bans all devices from the dinner table, no exception.
That's a habit shift right there.
Totally.
Yeah.
Then every person has to take a turn answering those 4 specific prompts about their day. And it completely revived the lost art of family conversation for them.
And the why here is so crucial. Smartphones condition us for continuous partial attention. We are never fully present.
We're always 1 foot out the door digitally.
Exactly. So by removing the devices and implementing a rigid 4-question structure, Dr. Nunn is literally rebuilding the neural pathways for active listening in his children. They can't just give a one-word fine when asked how their day was. They have a framework they must fill out.
So we've watched these foundational habits fix our internal discipline and our social interactions. But our social lives are inextricably linked to our physical environments.
Right, the spatial connection.
Yeah, that's the leap the book makes next. How mechanical physical movement accidentally rewires our entire social and environmental world.
And Brian Norell's story is the perfect synthesis of this phenomenon.
So good. Brian gets, as he puts it, hornswoggled into attending a health lecture by a doctor.
Such a great word.
I know. And he walks away with a basic pedometer, simple step counter. Now, to hit his daily numbers, he starts taking slightly longer roundabout routes through his neighborhood to buy the morning paper.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where the cascade effect of habit change becomes visible. Because Brian is physically walking more, he is moving slower through his environment.
He isn't just driving from point A to point B anymore.
Right. So he starts noticing the micro details of his neighborhood, specifically all the litter along the creek and the local baseball field. And it makes him angry.
But instead of just stewing in resentment and complaining about kids these days, he leans into his new walking habit. He buys a grabby claw and some paper grocery bags, and he turns his morning fitness walk into a daily Easter egg hunt for roadside trash.
The physical habit compounds into environmental activism.
And it doesn't stop there. Because he's out there every morning meticulously cleaning the baseball field, he accidentally meets a golden retriever named Bonnie and her owner.
And they start chatting.
Yep. Through that single connection, Brian soon finds himself showing up at the field every morning to hang out with a massive group of dog owners. He becomes the beating heart of this morning dog park community.
He's designing custom logos for them, making photo calendars of all their dogs.
They celebrate birthdays and holidays together. And the kicker, Brian doesn't even own a dog.
Oh my gosh, that is incredible. It's a beautiful progression. A mechanical habit, literally just putting 1 foot in front of the other to change a number on a screen, opened up his spatial awareness, which led to environmental stewardship, which organically blossomed into a profound sense of community belonging.
He thought he was just trying to get his heart rate up, but he ended up finding his tribe.
Absolutely.
So what does this all mean? We've watched a simple step counter accidentally build an entire community. But when your physical environment and social interactions change that drastically, your internal baseline, like the way your brain actually processes reality, has to shift to keep up.
Exactly. The middle section of the book zeroes in on this cognitive shift. It's about how you see yourself and the hidden magic in the everyday.
Right. Take L.E.D. Shafee's story, The Gift of Shift. She's at a leadership conference. There's this engaging speaker at the front of the room holding a giant iced tea, and he gives the audience a heavy task.
A very heavy task.
He says, write down a list of the top 10 most important things in your life.
You can just imagine the tension in that room. Everyone is agonizing over the hierarchy of their lives. Do I list my children together or separately? Does my career count? It's this intense, high-stakes moment of self-reflection.
Oh, yeah. Everyone is cribbling furiously. And then the speaker just casually takes a sip of his tea and says, now open your sheet of paper, and on the other side.
And it's a massive record scratch moment.
Exactly. It's a literal and figurative flip.
And let's dive into why that moment is so universally paralyzing. Human brains suffer from a cognitive bias called focalism.
Focalism.
Yeah. We get so hyper-focused on categorizing and protecting our immediate priorities, the front of the page, that we develop severe tunnel vision. We completely ignore the broader, infinite canvas of our lives, the back of the page.
That is so true.
The speaker's prompt forces the audience to shatter that focalism. It proves that there is always an entirely different context, an unwritten side to the narrative you've been obsessing over.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Changing your daily mental habits is like putting on polarized sunglasses. The world itself didn't change, but suddenly you can see straight through the glare to the good stuff.
Oh, I like that. And that intentional reframing is exactly what Ren Valentino talks about in her story. She developed a habit she calls her beautiful boomerang.
Which is such a great phrase.
It really is. She trained herself to catch her automatic negative thoughts in midair and flip them. If her brain's default setting was to look outside and think, the weather is terrible today, she would force herself to stop and reframe it out loud.
Like actually say it.
Yes, she'd say, even though the sky is gloomy, the forecast is bright for tomorrow.
Nice.
She also paired that internal reframing with an external habit. She committed to giving genuine compliments to 5 different people every single day.
Which sounds lovely, but I have to ask, isn't that exhausting?
Oh, catching every single negative thought.
Yeah. It requires immense cognitive load. You're basically acting as a 24/7 armed security guard for your own brain. How do you sustain that without burning out?
Well, it is exhausting at first, but neuroplasticity means that the more you force a pathway to fire, the less energy it takes over time. Eventually, the security guard doesn't have to work as hard because the negative thoughts stop trying to break in as frequently.
Ah, the pathways become smoother.
Right. And by coupling the internal reframe with the external action of giving compliments, she basically weaponized positivity. When you constantly send that signal out into the world, it invariably comes back to you. Hence the boomerang.
It's like installing an ad blocker in your brain. The spam, the pop-up ads, the bad weather, the crowded grocery stores, they're all still there, trying to load onto your screen. The physical reality hasn't changed, but your new habit intercepts that toxic code before it ever renders in your consciousness.
That is a phenomenal analogy. You are filtering out the noise at the source code level so you can actually see the signal.
And we see that ad blocker perfectly deployed in Brenda Leppington's story. She's at the grocery store having a deeply frustrating day. She's dealing with what she calls a bad hair day.
We've all been there.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And she sees a stranger looking confused in the baking aisle. Now, instead of rushing past, she uses her tiny habit of reaching out and helps the woman find a can of pumpkin pie filling.
And what is the immediate return on that tiny investment? A few aisles later, a completely different stranger stops Brenda just to tell her how beautiful her jacket looks on her.
It's incredible. She put a microdose of grace into the environment, and the environment handed it right back.
It really did.
And once you know how to filter the noise and cultivate that grace, you are finally ready for the hardest work of all. The book culminates with the most profound application of habit change, scaling these simple routines up to conquer our deepest, heaviest emotional trauma.
This is so important because in pop culture, healing is often framed as this mystical, elusive destination, like an epiphany you reach on a mountaintop.
Right, the sudden lightning bolt of clarity.
Exactly. But in clinical reality, healing is a repetitive, daily practice.
And Mary Ellen Angelscribe proves this in her story. She had a relationship with her mother that was incredibly emotionally distant. It was a cold, barren dynamic.
Heartbreaking.
It really is. But Mary Ellen decided to stubbornly change her side of the equation. She instituted a strict habit. She would end every single phone call with the words, "I love you."
And she got absolutely nothing back at first, just dead air. But she didn't stop. She kept the streak alive.
For 3 solid months, she essentially provided a predictable, safe, repetitive stimulus that slowly lowered her mother's defensive amygdala response.
Just wearing away the stone.
Yes. And finally, the ice cracked. Her mother eventually responded, "And I love you." Mary Ellen beautifully describes how her mother's words transformed from a frozen mountain stream to the joyful sound of a babbling brook. That one tiny, stubborn habit thawed a lifetime of emotional permafrost.
That gives me chills. And it perfectly sets up the final story we need to explore today, the story of Jay, written by his writing coach, Joan Leoff.
Oh, this one is powerful.
Jay is a 70-year-old, highly respected man. He's a former attorney, the first African-American president of his high school student council, a Howard University graduate. By all societal metrics, a pillar of his community.
But Jay was carrying a ghost. He harbored a dark, crushing secret for 30 years. Back in his 30s, while struggling with a severe cocaine addiction, he robbed a bank.
And he spent 5 years in federal prison.
Yeah. And for 3 decades after his release, he had never truly processed the cognitive dissonance of who he was then versus who he was now. He'd never forgiven himself.
Trauma has a way of freezing our identity in time. He was a prisoner of his own shame long after he left the physical cell, until he started working with Joan.
He started the simple habit of individual journaling and creative writing. Slowly, week by week, word by word, he began to unpack what he called the incident.
The physical act of putting a pen to paper became his daily medicine.
Through that micro habit, he was finally able to process his past, take off the mask he'd been wearing for 30 years, and actually learn to integrate that ghost with his present self.
This raises an important question, and really, it's what stands out to you listening to this progression. To me, it highlights how miraculously habit change scales.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
The exact same neurological mechanism of small, daily repetition, the ad blocker, the laughably simple brick, it works for something as mundane as stopping yourself from picking your cuticles, and something as profoundly life-altering as neurologically exposing yourself to the shame of a felony until you can finally forgive yourself.
Wow.
The psychological tool does not change, only the application does.
The brick is exactly the same. You just use it to build a completely different house.
Beautifully said.
We've covered a massive amount of ground today, from freezing Pennsylvania wellness walks to Shamu the killer whale, from pedometer-fueled trash collecting to thawing out a frozen mother and unpacking 30-year-old secrets. But I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day.
I think we all need to sit with this.
Think about your own life right now. What is your laughably simple B statement for tomorrow? If simply buying a pedometer can lead a dogless man to become the beating heart of a mourning canine community, what unseen worlds might your tiniest habit unlock? The brick is in your hand. Where are you going to put it? Thanks for joining us. Subscribe for more bookish adventures and hit that like button if you enjoyed the ride. Don't forget to share the knowledge. Spread the word.